I appreciate it's good to be here, and just I really enjoyed that those numbers by Therese. Yahoo does really, not to toot my own horn, a phenomenal job on volunteering. We're constantly getting messages on Slack to volunteer, and I think a lot of us take up those messages, so it's good to hear. But good to see both of you. Since we have a lot of time here, I think it's important before we get into any questions to go through your own corporate journeys and talk a little bit about yourself. Megan, let me start with you. Take us through how you got to where you are today.
So my name is Myungwon Lee. I'm a chairwoman and CEO of Panasonic Corporation of North America. I joined Panasonic in 1987, a few years ago, and I'm actually Korean-born American citizen now, and I did not go to school in U.S. at all. I started, I guess, only because I spoke Japanese at that time, and I started as a bilingual secretary in legal division. And I was in legal for a year. I did not like that very much, and I moved to strategy and then eventually to HR. So most of my functional background is in human resources and strategy. And I got to my current role 2 years ago. This is my third year. And we have a saying in our company, we make people before product. And I see myself that I am really the case of our corporate key value. And so that's about me.
James, I feel as though I should be thanking you for like the $12 Jamba Bowls that I bought. I mean, these things are so good, but I mean, I'll leave it to you.
I'm James White, and I'll take you through my background. I think one important part of my background, I was the first member of my family to graduate from college, so that's a really kind of foundational piece of my background. I'm a 30-year operating executive across several different industries, the retail industry, the restaurant industry, and I spent most of my career in the consumer packaged goods industry across the Coca-Cola Company, Nestle, Purina in St. Louis, worked for the Gillette Company, and then I finished the latter part of my operating career at Safeway stores, and then was later CEO and chair of Jamba Juice. And I've spent 20 years in the boardroom, public and private company boards, almost 20 boards, and that'll be the prism from which I'll come to today's discussion with. And I think the only other thing that is important, my daughter Krista is here with me, and we co-authored a book together. And the most important part of it is that I got to work with my daughter and have that intergenerational learning coming through that process.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention, James, about that book. Very impactful. Congrats to making that happen. That's great. James, from that point, before we get into some of the questions, maybe you could take us through what the book is about and why you wrote it.
I'll make what could be a long story, a short story. The title of the book is Anti-Racist Leadership. We started our journey on the book in 2019. Obviously, with the tragic murder of George Floyd, we were impacted. The two of us wanted to find a way to contribute back to the world in at least some constructive way. I'd received dozens of phone calls from both board members and CEOs that I knew asking for advice. The long and the short of the book is it's really about being human. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of what the heart work that you guys sitting in this room all do. And our perspective is that the work of anti-racism has to be led by the CEO. She's got to lead that work. It's a systems and process-oriented piece of work. And the greatest leverage point for the work is with the middle managers, because that's who most of us report to. And then the bottom line, that anything that matters, you measure it. So that's kind of a synopsis of the book. Has been very well received. We're passionate about this work. Has become my life's work, and we're working on book 2, which will zoom out and have us focus on culture.
That's great. Megan, how do you're just listening to James talk, how do you build some of those values from where you sit throughout the organization?
So before I get to that, I think it's really interesting that that was a pivotal moment of your journey as well, because I remember when that happened. Can I do that? Can I answer that later?
Yes, please, go for it. Yeah, happy to ask it again. Go. I'm going to listen. Got time.
I was head of HR and strategy when that happened. And as it was happening, all the companies were focused on rebuilding DEI. And as a head of HR and as a minority female, and I'm a Korean woman working for a Japanese company. I don't know if you know the history with Korea and Japan. It's not so warm and fuzzy with each other. But Panasonic has been really wonderful to me, and I'm very proud of it. But as a head of HR at that time, I felt really cynical about rebuilding the DEI program. It's not like it showed up all of a sudden. It was always there. And trying to rebuild the program felt not so genuine. And I had a long conversation with my boss, CEO at that time, and I asked him, if we're going to do it, I rather not do something flashy and too focused on communication, but something that we can sustain and live by it for ourselves for a long term. And also at that time, I felt that as a minority female, why do I feel, because I thought that was the end of my career. And I felt very comfortable as number 2. And I thought that was the best place to be best place to be because you don't get hit when there's a problem. And I said to myself, why do I feel that way, right? Why do I convince myself that this is as best as I can do? And when all the question was happening in workplace by myself and with my family, I said, why not? And that's when I called the corporate HR and said, hey, add my name to the succession planning. And
Love
so I just wanted to share that because it was a big moment for you, it was a big moment for me, and it's all what we learned from that experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll get back to that question. I just want to stay on DEI, just while you brought it up. What do you think about DEI facing the scrutiny it is today? Are you surprised?
I think any changes that we make, you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So it doesn't matter what we call, right? That inclusion and providing safe environment is always there and is more important. Maybe we talk about different things, different definitions, but I'm not that discouraged by that or try not to be and really focus on what we can do. Because I don't know, if anyone denies the concept of DEI, I don't know. Go have fun, but we'll do what we have to do and not lose focus.
Isn't that focus good for business, James? You're in these boardrooms. What do the conversations look like?
Yeah, the point that I'd make is we're in the midst, and this is something I've learned from my daughter, of a generational change. So this is going to change, so there are going to be some companies that were really never committed to this work, and they're going to use this opportunity to take a step back. But the best leaders that I work with believe in the work to the point that Megan makes. I don't get so much caught up in the label and what we call things. Let's just keep after the work. And I was in a few sessions yesterday, and some of the leaders said, let's just stick with the work. Let's not get wrapped up in the politicization of words, but let's be about the work. And I'll share one example that I shared in one of the workshop sessions. As the Supreme Court ruling hit, I was sitting in one boardroom, and the GC was talking about all the ways where we would need to kind of retrench our efforts. And I watched the discussion, and it could have gone in a very wrong direction. And I asked one simple question: what's changed with our company values from 2 weeks ago before this ruling that paused and changed the trajectory of the conversation? I think that's one of the ways we've all got to use our voices as leaders around these topics. And I think the best companies or they're pressing forward, but there's always, to Megan's point, when there's significant change, there's significant pushback. Somebody made that point, you've got to push forward as you face the push back.
Do the leaders, James, need to see these programs tied to some form of financial outcome? Do they need to lead to better profits at some point? Or they're just saying they're good for humanity, we're going to keep moving forward with them?
Yeah, I think the way I think about it, this is like any other business practice. I mean, it needs to be embedded in things that strengthen the company. So all the places that I sit on boards, we measure it in some way, some more complicated ways than others. But this has never been about anything but business for me. This is not charity work. This is about this is culture work, and that's the reason I make the point that CEOs can't delegate. This work has to be owned and led into the organization, and like any other business practice or process, if it matters, you measure it.
How do you go upon building some of these values into the company, from looking at it from the Panasonic perspective?
So Panasonic is a 106 years old company. We were created in Japan in 106 years ago. It's 1918. And our founder always felt strongly about corporate values. And he felt that if you have a strong corporate value, it should pay off and can grow responsibly for sustain. You talked about measuring in financial outcome. DEI, I don't think it's a charity. If it's a charity, it's not good for the company. It's not good for the individuals either. Providing inclusive work culture that you feel safe, absolutely there's a measure for how it can have a positive impact. The innovation comes from different ideas and backgrounds. So there are enough, if not right away in quarterly numbers, there are proofs that the DEI makes sense for business to grow and expand and sustain. Panasonic has lived that value for 106 years and also 65 years in US as well. And it absolutely works. We talk about our core mission is contribution to society. And we do that by creating healthy business, that we believe that if you're losing money, you're not a responsible business for the community, because the community is not responding to the business model. You run a company with a resource financially, but also with people as well. You should be able to create a healthy business and manage it responsibly. Paying tax is also part of corporate responsibility, right? You're part of community. And that core value always has remained with the company, regardless of where you are. And I think it's really important for the future to attract the talent that are more and more interested. And I think we just saw in the data that employees are more interested in volunteering and also want to be part of the corporation with a purpose.
James, how can they go upon staying on top of this and making sure that every day it's executed upon?
I think for me, I go back to kind of the focus of this 2 days is really about purpose. And the way in my mind you bring purpose to life is through the culture of an organization, is how your purpose comes to life and gets activated. And as I think about corporate culture, it's really all the touchstones that you have with all your most critical stakeholders. One of the things that we think about, you either have culture by design or default. So so you should manage your corporate culture. And as I look at the moment in time that we're in of perma-crises, it's never been more important to kind of tend to managing corporate culture. And as I think about the leaders that are sitting in this room, you really play a critical role in helping your CEO and executives and informing your board in a way that they understand the context. So for me, when I sat in the CEO seat, my most important job was really setting the context. And there's probably never been a more challenging time to sit in those seats. And the context is shifting given all the, well, Megan, you're living this, coming at you every single day, different than when I was CEO 6 or 7 years ago. But context is important, and really intentionally managing how your culture shows up. And people in this room, you actually shape your company's culture from the roles that you play, whether it's in ESG, DEI, sustainability, and in particular, corporate communications was always one of my most important resources to kind of shape my message and how we showed up to all of our stakeholders.
Megan, is there a way to keep all stakeholders happy?
I think it depends.
Good answer.
But I think long term, yes. I do think, I don't know, maybe it's because my background is more in HR. I do think employees are our most important stakeholders. And if we provide a work environment that's meaningful and that's responsible, in the end, I believe that can satisfy our customers and our investors as well. I don't think it's that healthy focus on any short-term given time, but as a leader, I think we all want to focus on our sustainable values and responsible businesses so that we don't lose sight on short-term challenges and pushbacks.
Mm-hmm. James, how have some of these conversations changed over the past 20 years?
I think they've changed dramatically. I think the language that we use in business settings is dramatically different. Even over the last 4 or 5 years, the conversations are different. One story back to the book, when we looked at the title of this book, one of the folks on the team said, "James, you're a mainstream business person. Do you care if you ever work again?" That was the comment, and this is just 3 or 4 years ago. I said, I don't really, it doesn't matter, and I've never been busier. I've got a full board portfolio and consulting practice, but the language has changed. I think we are having more honest conversations inside the corporation, and I think there is a separation of how the best leaders are approaching these topics. Someone mentioned the use of road shows to kind of drive company values or to educate the organization. That's become a more important skill in the C-suite as we're leading through these significant changes, whether it was COVID, the supply chain related issues, or all the global conflict that is happening. But context and kind of communication are really the two of the best tools of leaders in this moment. One other point that I'd make, and this is a tool that I learned around a friend of mine who is a mentor, as I understand it, of yours, Ron Shea. Ron was the founder of Panera Bread, and he talks about this future back, and I'm sure you guys have had discussions around this future back approach. I think one of the things that is always calming for me as a leader is to try to step out of today and look at least 5 years forward and plant myself in whatever that desired outcome might be, and then come back to today and say what's most important right now to get to that future state.
Yeah, just to share a quick story, I think it was 6 years ago on my prior job, Ron just came to our office and he gave me essentially an hour full of free leadership advice. But now I'm thinking in real time, leadership in a newsroom, especially the size of Yahoo Finance, has changed dramatically over the past 10 years. There's new ways of communication on Slack, new ways of communication in person, and the language has definitely changed. But I'm changing as a leader in real time too. And I think that sets up this next question. Is there a leadership model I should be using or leaning on more today than maybe I used 5 or 10 years ago?
I'd share just a couple thoughts. One is this future back, and I would encourage folks you can go find that model, but there's a STAR model that I've found really works kind of over time. And it's just a way to align strategy and purpose with all your stakeholder groups, and it just distills in a way that, calms all the storm that kind of sits around us in the moment that we sit in. And then just the two basic things that aren't really a tool is context really, really matters. And the role of any of us in a leadership role is to set the context, because we represent the truth for our organizations. And I think people have to hear it 6 or 7 times in lots of different ways. We learn differently generationally. So we've got to take that into account as well. And listening, I've heard kind of throughout. We've actually got to listen harder as leaders, and then try to bake in systems that allow us to get more real-time feedback. I was on a board call this morning, and the CEO, in this case, talked about the impact of social media and TikTok, and he was mentioning a competitor where their business was being influenced literally in real time by TikTok feedback on diminishing of portions, and I'll just leave it at that.
I'm putting two together. I think I got it. But with a company like your heritage, Megan, how have the leadership models changed, and what models are you using today to empower your workers?
So I brought my business card. In the back of our business card, we actually print our 7 principles. That is 100 years old, and it's contribution to society, fairness and honesty, cooperation and team spirit, untiring efforts for improvement, courtesy, humility, and adaptability and gratitude. I do go back to this whenever there is a difficult decision to be made, and it's 100 years old, but I think it's still true more than ever that we have to stay humble, open-minded. I absolutely agree. 20 years ago, the leadership style that we all respected and want to become is someone like, I don't know if you guys know Jack Welch, right?
Yes.
Authoritarian, confrontational, almost, I don't think we like that anymore, right? Listening, there's a term.
Maybe we never
I don't think we ever liked it. I was like, who wants to be yelled at their desk?
The empathetic leadership, right? The authentic leadership, it's very different. You really have to learn how to relate and understand and listen and be prepared to talk about what you're about, because people will figure it out. And that's something that we all have to think hard about, right? What do we stand for? And why it's important for the business as well. So that's very different, and I think it's for the better future.
Is there a way to get your message of gratitude out more? In this world, we're all looking for instant gratification and searching for the next big thing. How do you get an important message like that across?
That's definitely not easy. I have 2 children who are grown up, both working, and I worked really hard to send them to school, right? Neither of them they're both working off my payroll. Neither of them didn't turn out to be a lawyer, doctor, or investment banker. I don't know what happened to my strategy. But anyway.
All right, well, this is over.
But anyway, when I talk to them, they really challenge me and put me to shame as someone working in corporate America. And I look at them, and that's our current and future employees, right? They really challenge me on my thinking and why I do what I do and what's wrong with it. And it's very humbling. It's very easy to tell them, shut up and go to bed.
Very Jack Welch-like, yes.
Right, exactly. But staying humble and also positive and curiosity also, I think it's important. And we're constantly learning and adapt. Otherwise, it's very important to stay current.
James, I don't want to give your whole book away, but it struck me that there are probably a lot of decisions and a lot of moments throughout the course of your career that changed the direction of your career. Can you share a couple of them?
Yeah, I guess the main one that I'd share, and I thought about this question kind of coming in and thought what might be relevant to this audience. And it was, as I moved into greater roles of responsibility like the ones that you said in, I really learned to use my power and the power of the network. And the specific example I'll give, I worked for Nestle Purina, had a relatively big role in the customer organization. In addition to my day job, I was the sponsor of every affinity group, which is what we call them kind of back in the day. So I was the exec sponsor for the Hispanic group, which is what we called it in those days, the Black group and the women's group. And I carried that sense of making an impact on with me to Gillette, where I was both a sponsor of the Black Affinity group. I helped launch the women's group at Gillette, and then we drove that into industry organization, a network of executive women. I think they're now called Next Up. And I'm really proud that I took that experience and then went to Safeway stores, and I actually helped launch the West Coast for New and became a board member, one of the few men as a board member of that organization. And I'm proud to say I've never stopped that work. Today I founded my own nonprofit working on leveling the play field in the boardroom, Directors Academy. I'm an advisor to Black women on boards, and I'm an advisor to 50-50 women on boards, and that's been just the through line of my career, and all those experiences paid far more back to me as a leader than the contributions that I've made to those organizations. And I just share that point because of the hard work that everybody here is doing. We all have the opportunity to change people's lives and to create better companies that we'd all want to work for.
What are some of the questions you're getting from those latter groups you just mentioned?
Just advice. I mean, people are looking for advice. I mean, the boardroom is the most mysterious place for people. It's hard to get into, and it's hard to get rid of people, as Daryl knows, once you get them in the boardroom. But what we attempt to do is just demystify what is a mysterious kind of place and process for people and put them on the pathway to being in the right places, to at least be in the consideration set. And then from inside the boardroom, I'm always looking for ways to just create more inclusive environments. I'm proud of the Honest Company board is the board we have listed here. And if you think about our products, it's baby products and personal care products. Of our 9 board members, there are 6 women. 50% of the board is people of color. And every one of the committee chairs, including myself as chairman, are all diverse. In that, you have to be intentional to live into those places.
Megan, is there one moment that changed the direction of your career?
It's very personal, but when I had my first child, it was about more than myself, and being responsible for another human being is a commitment and liability and joy and all. And I do try to bring that to work as well. This is not for everyone, definitely, so don't blame me for if it doesn't work for it. But I do think about our employees as what would I do if this was my child? And that helps me a lot as a person.
In the time we have left, I'll put this question to both of you. James, to you, any final words of wisdom, on what some of the leaders in here should be doing to improve their own career or their own career path moving forward?
I think the main thing is I'm grateful for the great works that you all do. I mean, this truly is hard work. I would encourage you to leverage this fantastic CECP community. There's a lot of resource here. There's a lot of passion and talent for the work that we all do. And if there's ever a place where I might be helpful to you, I'd love to have you reach out.
James, real quick, what's the misconception? You mentioned boards are mysterious. You know, what are some challenges? You know, if there are new members or new people in here coming into a board, what should they be prepared for?
Well, I think the biggest mystery is really how they work and how to get access to membership. And one of the pieces of advice that I give people is, in this group in particular, you sit on lots of charitable boards. Many of the charitable board members that you sit on those boards with, they sit on public and private company boards, and just spending time with people that sit on boards, letting them know what your ambition is. But I think the most important thing is really understanding your own capabilities and where you might add value. You know, so this is not just some fun club to be a part of. This is, I mean, you've got to have very specific ways where you'd add value to a specific board and a specific industry, and thinking about it in that way, not from a perspective of interviewing for a job. People are looking at you from the perspective of how you'd be as a colleague around the board table and where you'd add value.
And Megan, how about you? Any final words of wisdom?
Sure. So what I do say, in addition to those 7 principles, what I do say to myself every day is curiosity and gratitude. Sometimes it's very hard to stay the optimism is not a choice, but it's a decision. And stay curious, and curiosity and gratitude helps me to do that. So that's what I tell myself, and so far it's working.
Just one off-the-cuff question for me. I mean, your business touches so many different areas. I can't help myself. Is there like a new cool product coming out? What is? My whole house is filled with Panasonic stuff. But if you go to your,
so much.
Look, if you go to the Panasonic website, I mean, you guys are doing things beyond what I think many know your brand for.
Right.
I can't help myself. I follow a lot of companies.
I'll give you a call, but Panasonic now is a 95% B2B company. And one of our challenges is really stay relevant as a consumer brand with a younger generation. So thank you so much for making that comment. And we have a lot of cool products coming out for beauty products, and the new digital still cameras cameras too. So I'll send you an email.
Yeah, please do.
New
Thanks.
products.
I appreciate it. I thought it was just
thank
2
you so
questions,
much.
but that's it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.